All right. What the heck? Let's start a half a minute early.
Okay.
Please rise. Mike?
Yes, please. Pledge allegiance before the
Flag.
flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
David?
I'll ask you to stand for a moment of silence, keeping our thoughts, those who go in harm's way to protect our safety, the firemen, emergency medical services folks, and of course our police officers, who we hope will bring the current manhunt to peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, as usual, the Zoom public is asked to remain muted during the meeting. The board will ask questions or make comments first, then people in the room, and then we'll go to Zoom. If Zoom participants, do we have any? Yeah, one. If the Zoom participant would like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand. The township yard sale is scheduled for this Saturday, September 17th. You can pick up a map in the township building or download it from the website. The Pipeline Task Force and the Futurist Committee are seeking new members. If you have interest, contact Derek, our township manager, or fill out an ABC volunteer form on the applications page of our website.
So I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but the chairman's report is an outdated one. So it is actually September 16th, Saturday, September 16th is the yard sale.
Oh,
I
really?
apologize.
All right.
Typo, no worries.
No, it's yeah, kind
I
of.
would have been over here looking for you on the 17th.
Well, you would have been looking for a while.
Yeah. All right, public hearings, we have none. We do not have emergency services reports, the financial report, none. And we have no minutes, our treasurer's report to go over, nor have we old business. We have new business, and I'm going to exercise my discretion here, what I have of it, and move the issues around, because I perceive that we have discussion with Dutz Mill Homeowners Association, and I would like to put that before the general budget presentation. What do we have on that, Derek?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm 1 second. Cody's in a minute.
So is Cody coming in?
He is. Let me just make sure he's good. Yep, he's in.
Ciao, Cody.
Ciao.
Ciao.
You don't sound like you're awake.
That's all you got to say for 4,000 miles away?
I'm outside of my hotel on the balcony, so I'm trying to be a little bit more quiet.
Let them know we're meeting over here. It's important.
If only we could get Mike out there. All right, go ahead.
So I'll just give a little bit of background because I want Linda, who's here from the HOA, to speak as well on their behalf. But essentially, Mark and I were contacted by Linda earlier in this summer. And it had to do with stream bank issues in a stream, the east branch of the Chester Creek, I believe, Mark, is it? Which runs right outside their back of their property, the HOA property. And it's pertained to a potential stream bank restoration project or some issues having to do with the stream there and the erosion that's been happening for the last couple decades. So it was explained to me there was a redecking of the bridge there, and that this bridge that was redecked by the township had caused a little bit of a quote unquote pinch point, I guess the term was, and had made the erosion worse. So Dutz Mill was seeking some assistance on this project for the township, with the township, sort of a partnership. I think they still had their own work to do, but there was a swath right there on the south side of the bridge that they were hoping we can do. After looking at it, well, we got some documents. Mark helped me with that. He was actually here during the time. I guess there was just to put it out there, there was a disagreement, I guess, between Mark and I and the homeowners association as far as the responsibility, and I just didn't think I can authorize that without any board input. So I told Linda to come to a board meeting, particularly this one, since it has to do with the budget of 2024, which that would have to be budgeted. I'm not familiar with the cost as far as how much that would be at this exact time, but other than that, I can let Linda come up to the podium and sort of give her side of and Dutz Mills HOA's position, and then we can have a discussion.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm Linda Sipple and this is Sean Yarson,
And can you give us your address, please? Could you give us your address, please, for the record?
205 Dutz Mill East.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Sean, you're two,
to 223, that's no, it's
okay, Sean.
okay.
Present.
Do you
You're gonna
have-
need to speak directly into the microphone,
Okay.
just so you know, so that the people on Zoom can hear you as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Do you have the image we sent over of the actual bank with the arrows on it?
This is the only one that was sent to me for tonight's meeting.
I was the one that sent for the meeting.
Okay. Oh, let's make it a little bit tougher then. So basically what we have going on is, as you plainly put too, historic storms that were happening like every 100 years due to current climates are happening a lot regular basis, like once every year. So restorations that were done at the time of the redecking are no longer holding. So one thing that the township did for us is on that part of the property that's our property, they put in riprap, about 20 yards of it previous to our property to kind of protect it directly. The area we're talking about now is kind of a no man's land. So it's something where it's not our deeded property. It isn't deeded to the people next to us. It's kind of just a no man's land that's in between the properties and running down the creek.
Can I?
Sure.
I'd like to interject on that. So I did a little bit of research, and back when the new bridge was built in 1912, it was 1912 to 1916 that all the paperwork was sent, that I did send to you, Derek. And that information that was in there said that the Dutz Mill property started 100 yards from the bridge. And the map that we sent over, the last document I sent you, was the document that shows the boundaries of Dutz Mill. And that 100 yards from where the Dutz Mill marking is to the bridge is 100 yards. That Dutz Mill never owned, even with the previous owners. So my guess is it has to be owned by East Goshen Township.
Who's the property next to you guys? What's the other homeowners? I mean, it looks like townhomes, but it's escaping me right now, but it's
The
up
one
here
across the creek or across the road?
across the creek.
Audubon. Yes, that's Audubon.
Okay.
And if you look at this map closely, Audubon's property doesn't start there either. There's that property that was talked about in the deed from 1912 and also located on here that I'm assuming belongs to the township along with the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know we've been back and forth a little bit, but I disagree somewhat because when you say no man's land, Pennsylvania, the way it's sort of structured is every sort of piece of ground is owned by somebody. Now, when I look at admittedly, this is not the recorded version. This is the Chesco Views version, but you'll see, their boundary, they have whether that boundary is correct or not, there's no space in between Audubon and Dutz Mill. There's a right of way starting right near the road. But if you were to do a survey, which is the only way to really solve that issue, I don't think there would be a quote unquote no man's land. I think the true boundaries would come out and the neighbors across the creek would probably own some of it. That's my guess.
Well,
Somebody, let me interrupt you a second.
sure.
Put the other map up because this is too small to see and
Sure.
I don't want another one of those.
But I will say that the boundaries are different from the
Right.
recorded
Look at
version
what I
of the
brought.
Chesco version.
I can't read the map. It's too small. Somebody walk over there and show me where this bridge is.
Okay. It's a little bit off the map, but right here. Right where I'm like kind of scrolling.
And the area in question
Crosses the
we're
street.
talking about right here, starts all the way down to,
Okay, who uses the bridge?
Every-
say it's the bridge.
It's on West Town Way.
So it's 3 track.
It's the it's an East Goshen Township Bridge.
Okay. And
On West Town Way.
what do you think is the matter with the bridge?
So when I did the research back, well, it's not just the bridge, it's the fact that that 100 yards next to the bridge, between the bridge and where the Dutz Mill land starts. The owner, the owner back then, I think, was East Goshen Township, and I'm thinking it is the East Goshen Township owns that land. And what we're asking is to have some repair done there because we had the Schuster brothers come out last year and we wanted to repair further down on our property. And they said, until we get that fixed, that area, that 100 yards between the bridge and where our property starts, that we have to get that fixed first, because no matter what we do downstream, it's going to get washed away. And since we weren't able to, we have an actual marker that marks where our land begins, and it's about 100 yards from that bridge, and which coincides with the documents I sent from 1912. I photocopied all of them and sent them. And it was actually built in 1916. And the fact that what we got, we went to the deeds office and got a copy of the actual.
Excuse speaking to the microphone again, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we actually got a copy of the actual deed from the deeds office. And even that copy, which if you pull that back up, it'll show that 100 yards does not belong to us.
Well, I can't decipher anything on this map because this is just too tiny with a magnifying
Try to
glass.
blow it
And
up.
I don't need reading glasses, so I can't read any of this map at all. So this map is worthless for me. I can't deal with
Did you
that.
bring the
So
map?
so what the question I've got is, what are you looking for from the township? Then you want us to make the repairs along this 100-yard
Yes,
area,
yes.
and
It's riprap. Yeah.
what is wrong with this area that it's a problem?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Basically, the stream bank has eroded because the dirt behind the stones that were originally there has been washed away because the stream bank has gone over its bank so many times. And with the bridge, it's actually creating a bit of hydraulic pressure because the bridge is slightly smaller than the actual riverbank itself. So when it's over normal stage, if you can imagine when you're putting water through a funnel, the part coming out at the other end has a lot more force. So that's basically what we're getting. Our request is to just install stone, like over at I believe it's Westtown Depot you have there, which is only half a mile from there. You have a lot of large stone that's from other building projects that has just been stored there. We're asking for you to take maybe a truckload of it, a big load, and just place them using some type of excavator equipment on there. Riprap is basically armoring the bank. You're basically putting large stone in front of the bank so that when the water comes up, any debris that hit it will bounce off the stone. And if it goes over, it acts like a wall, and it keeps the dirt from being able to wash as quickly back in and erode the backside of the bank. You guys actually did the same process for us about 20 meters down from where we're asking for the work to be done. So it is something that you guys have done in the past.
Okay, so my concern is whose property is this? And we can't take, respectfully, we can't take your word for it. And even though you've provided documents have been proven to be incorrect. So
Okay.
I think the only way that we can determine, first of all, if this is actually township property or whose property it is to have a survey done and determine what's township property, what's private property. And if it's something on private property, then it would be the responsibility of your homeowners association or your individual homeowners.
Okay. Would you also then be able to expedite us getting approval to work on it? Because it obviously is a
That's
water property
that's
within.
something I can.
Expedite approval to work on what?
To actually install the riprap, because it's something from my understanding, because it is a waterway that we have to get permission from the township in order to make any
It
repairs.
wouldn't be the township.
No, it would be, so this is another complication because all the streams and rivers are quote unquote waters of the Commonwealth.
Okay.
It would be DEP.
Right. Yeah, we actually have gone through DEP and have a permit for the area we need to rebuild up further down the stream. We have a 30-foot permit there, which is what we plan to do next. We'll do, but we need that other part fixed. Sorry.
Yeah, Cody can't hear you.
Sorry, Cody. Appreciate listening. What I said was, I'm familiar with the DEP. We had to do an application to them back 20 some years ago after Floyd, when we had a real devastation of our creek bank. We got a 30-foot permit for an area, and we put in gabion baskets and other things to keep that in check.
And do you have a current permit with the DEP to do your portion of this project already?
Yes, that permit does not expire.
And do you have that in hand that you can prove that to the township?
I can send it to
I'm just
Derek.
curious. Okay, you have it in hand.
Mhm.
Okay. With the DEP, that's part of the problem with the DEP. So we want to make sure that you do have that permit. I think that this is a lot more complicated than just simply coming to us and asking us to do a repair, a little temporary thing. I think this is something where we have to determine first who owns this property.
I mean, even in looking at the official recording deed right here, I see the boundary, kind of the black line right here. We do have a sewer easement on this side, but there's nothing here that indicates it's ours. There's a couple of overarching issues in my opinion. One, I haven't seen anything that I've seen research in this to say that East Goshen Township owns this swath of land right here. But also hypothetically, if we did a survey and it came back we did, you then have to sort of shift your minds and thinking about this from an MS4 perspective and where on the hopper this sort of lands as far as MS4 projects and stormwater projects. I'm not saying it can't be put to the front, but there's also tons and tons of projects we have to do here from an MS4.
Can you, Derek, for those who don't understand what MS4 is, can you explain that please to the public?
Sure. So it stands for Municipal Storm. Hold on, sorry. There's 4 S's. I'm trying to think of it. Municipal Storm Sewer Systems, and it's a permit from DEP, essentially allowing the township to discharge clean water into the bodies of the Commonwealth, bodies of water into the Commonwealth. It's a complicated thing that's been going on since the 1972 Clean Water Act was passed and subsequent legislation, but that is essentially the governing body of clean water in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and each municipality needs a permit in order to function. So for stormwater, as crazy as it sounds, you need a permit for stormwater.
So even if this is something that we found was township owned, then we'd have to go to the DEP ourselves and get a permit for this. And is this actually causing damage to any of your properties?
We've had a lot of devastation in the fact that we've lost probably at least 3 feet of land. All the roots of the trees up past to the first set of townhomes are sticking out. It gets worse every year. And see, we have stormwater coming down from across the way, which really helps impact all of that. But if we can get that one piece of land done, even if it's, just the rocks to secure that area, it's going to prevent a lot of erosion down the stream.
I think we understand that part, but the problem is that we have to determine if it was my property and Mark Miller would come along with his excavator and drop 14 ton of rock on my property, I'd probably flip out without, he's not just allowed to come onto my property is my point. So that's why it's important for us to understand who owns the property
Hey,
to
Michelle, may I
start
have a
with.
comment here? First thing we need to have done is establish who owns the property. Survey is not the initial answer for that. I'd like to see if we can authorize our township solicitor to look at the deeds and the records to verify what the ownership is. Once we understand the ownership, we should have our township engineer take a look at what that means relative to the physiography that's there, the current conditions, coordinate with our public works director and find out just where we stand. Once we know that, we'll know better whether we need to go to an extra agency to either obtain a permit or not. And apart from all that, if there is something that the township may be able to do, depending on the comments from the public works director, that is perhaps extracurricular, that'll be something we may be able to consider later. But the first thing we need to do is get with our solicitor, get an understanding of who owns it, and then proceed with coordination with our engineer to see just what the status is of the disruption there and the impact.
I mean, I can get started with Mark Thompson on it ASAP if that's the direction.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have to come back to us and ask us to approve the engineering. And that's something that we haven't budgeted for this year, and it's not something that,
Well, I think that's even, but I think the solicitor part is the more important part.
yeah.
We have general engineering services that we can authorize, Michelle, without getting into a full-blown project, just to have them take a look at it, have Benoni take a look at this once we understand what the ownership is. If the ownership is not East Goshen Township, then there's a discussion of whether East Goshen Township is going to have, again, any, as I refer to it, extracurricular, however you want to refer to it, support or intervention or not. But I think having the solicitor review, it'll be, by the time they get done, it'll be $1,000 probably to look at the records and find out who owns what. And then we see from there whether or not to engage our engineer. And this is going to take some time. We're in budget season, but this could take some time. And-
Cody said he agrees with your comments, so just a heads up.
David? You on board?
And excuse me, David, one more thing. Mark Miller is here, our Director of Public Works. Mark, you'd like to have a comment in a little bit. I'd like to hear from you about what your perspective is on this, because you know the geography down there better than we do. I'm sorry, David.
No, I think that the solution also needs to have engineers. I think putting rocks there may continue to funnel a volume of water into the bridge, and I don't know what kind of problems that might cause. So I think that we have to have an engineer.
If we actually got to a point where we were gonna do a project, I would not do it without an engineer.
Right.
For sure.
So
So,
that's
Okay.
Maybe, does Cody have any questions? 'Cause-
Cody said he agreed with Mike's comment.
okay.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions for either of the two of you. Thank you for coming and bringing it to us, though. I don't know if John has anything.
No,
Okay.
I'm on board. We'll get the solicitor.
We'll start the ball rolling with
Yeah.
Mark Thompson and
Yeah.
Liam
Yeah.
McElwain, Derek, and see what they can look in their
So,
record and find out.
Do we want to have
Yep.
Mark come up and speak to this so that we have a little bit of his background? Because then we get a little bit of history. Do you mind coming up, Mark, so that Cody can hear you?
You may want to start with the two documents that I've presented, the one from 1912 and then the map, the official map from the deeds office. And if you have any questions, I want to thank you so much for listening to us.
Yeah.
and responding like this. It's really appreciated.
We'll
It's-
appreciate it too. Let's
yeah.
see where we go and.
Okay.
Just be patient because it's not going to be fast. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Not as fast as you want it to be.
thank you, thank you.
The problem is you have this whole thing throughout the township. And I know for a fact up on Heather Lane, back in there's one guy, he's losing the embankment to his pool. So, I mean, you gotta pick and choose where you're gonna go. But down there, we, years ago, after we decked the bridge, we went back and we underpinned the underneath of it, which I have pictures of us doing that. We didn't shrink anything down, we just packed concrete in around the stones. So,
When you did that work, Mark, was that done based on an engineering assessment review for you to follow?
yes.
And that was done in 2012? 2005.
Right.
So we still probably have the records of that engineering review that may be of value, taking a look at what was done. I suppose we must have had a DEP permit at that time,
We did,
authorization.
yes,
to-
we did.
And I understand the bridge itself, the decking, it was pretty much complete, restored, same elevations, same, clearance.
It was a quick approval because we weren't touching the water. So that's why I got approved so quick.
Down there now, have you looked at it?
Yeah.
Is the bank eroding?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I want to look at that sometime.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. All right,
Thanks, Mark.
any other comments or questions in the room? Anybody on Zoom have a question or comment? All right, then we're gonna proceed to get a legal opinion on the ownership of the property first of all. And then if it warrants, we'll get an engineer's opinion. And if you have to call us for approval of doing that, use the telephone.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Our next meeting is,
So next week, 3 in a row.
all right, next item then is the preliminary general fund budget presentation. I assume that's Mr. Ware, who's been very quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for coming in.
That wasn't.
So the header slide says 23. It's actually 24. I promise. I knew it would be.
you got the other details for you saved up, so this, we're with you.
All right. Big paper.
Okay, so as a kind of a preliminary setup, we're beginning our preliminary 2024 budget with a net result of operations of $0, neither a surplus nor a deficit. This comes on the heel of projected 2023 surplus of about $270,000. With August actuals layered in, we call that an 8 and 4 forecast. So that's 8 months actual, 4 months of forecast. Just a caveat that the 23 projection will be updated with September actuals, since this is preliminary, and we'll get a closer approximation of our 2023 finish, both revenue and expense. And note also that we have to receive our 2024 workers' comp rates, our medical insurance rate increases from Divot, and better idea of where our year-end inflation numbers should probably be. In addition, our final WEGO budget and all fire and EMS contributions will need to be included in our final outcome. So my process is pretty much take the revenue. I go through all the categories, the detail behind it. They kind of go up and down. You can look at historical trends. We know pretty much what we're going to get generally in licenses. Fines are contracted. Interest earnings are based on assumptions that it's not going to be as good as we've had it recently, but it's probably going to be closer to what we saw at the beginning of the year. So that could end up being a little bit more rosy than we actually have in here, but we'll wait and see. Rents, we know those by contracts. And then our shared revenue and entitlement, that basically is the same year to year. Same with general government, our public safety, those are fairly steady revenues. Highways and streets is minimal. Culture and recreation, I get from Jason, as well as his projected classes and summer program teams, hirings, the trips that they'll take, so the cost and the revenue side of those. And then the highway, the miscellaneous revenue, the dip that you see there is driven by a FEMA payment for 92,000 that we got for Hurricane Ida damage in 2021. That was in 23 we received it. So that's the $92,000-ish gap there. And we still see strong, I'm assuming still strong interfund operating transfers. Those are when we do a recharge for back for administrative expenses to our refuse fund, to our municipal authority, and to our sewer operating for work that they pay a piece of all of the assets that we have, as well as the cost to administer to everything. Down in expenses, I think it's probably easier if we look at it in the detail on the next slides. So there's our current net budget, 0. You can see we're hanging in fairly good. We wouldn't be at this point if we had not had a millage increase, in my opinion. In 2020, and that was 2023 January. You can go to the next one. Yeah. So here's our budgeted revenue. Obviously, the when you look at the pie chart, the outstanding one is EIT. That is the big driver. That was what has increased, but the millage had no impact on. But we've seen it strong. 2020, 21, 22, and 23 are all looking to be around the 5.7 to 5.8 range. So I still feel comfortable sticking with a 5.75 forecast on that. The real estate property tax, as I mentioned, that was increased due to the millage change. Interoperating transfers, explained that one. So really the EIT still looks strong. I reached out to Keystone Collections, who does our EIT. They actually, the next 2 years have ratcheted down their commission rate a little bit for Chester County. So we'll get a little bit of a break on tax collection costs, but they still think as well that the campaigns that they're running to collect past years as well as current year are having good outcome, and that's what we've seen for year to date so far. Next. And this is just a different graphic way to look at it. The total stack of what we're seeing, you can see it rarely changes, except for the jump in 23 in the budget and forward, that real estate property tax amount. Next. So looking at it year over year and looking at budget in 24 preliminary versus our projection, you can see keeping a lot of it fairly flat. I think the inner operating is fairly conservative. I think that's a pretty good number. Our interest rates, as I mentioned, I think we'll probably do better than that. But at this point, I did meet with Paul Robinson from Pliget, and we discussed some possible measures to use Pliget to offset possible rate flattening or decreases in the upcoming year. We were kind of in the same crystal ball and what the financial advisors are thinking right now. So it is probably a good time to lock up a couple different tiers of investment portfolio. So we can get, right now they have some 9-month and 12-month CDs or notes, are actually term loans are actually 5.84% interest, and that we could lock in, and that way even if rates drop we would still have it. But if the rates don't necessarily drop, they could go up. So you kind of want to tier it and have some in prime, some in, a smaller short range investment, and possibly one up to 9 to 12 months. And that way we can kind of cover all the bases. But we really don't, he talked about some up to 3 year deals that they have, but it's kind of too long. It hampers our cash flow looking outward. And with the kind of increases that we see year to year, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. You can see the 92,000 FEMA payment and miscellaneous standing out. Total fines, I've got basically the historical kind of average, 45,000. Codes is going to update those numbers. They're a little behind on the year to date, so I'll have a better idea of where those might go. Next.
Is this it?
I think we went past one. Sorry. Should be on expenses now. Yeah, so it should be the pie chart of expenses. There we go.
Sorry about that.
So a couple of years ago, public safety was about 39 to 40%. It's creeping up into the budget of 42%. And that currently doesn't have all of the asks for fire, EMS, and police. So you can see the detail on that when we get to the last slides. But that is the big driver of the majority of our increase for year over year, 23 to 24.
What was the historic average?
39.
We've been between 39 and 40%.
Essentially what Dave is saying is that I referenced it. I like the projection comparison, but I also like comparisons of increases budget year to budget year, since that's the numbers we're looking at as a benchmark. I don't know whether you can put another column, but it's something that I feel more comfortable in. A number of my comments were related to budget versus budget, Dave. And that's not to discount the projections, because I appreciate your work there, but the increase from 23 to 24 in the general fund budget here at this early stage is about $500,000. And the about $400,000 of that is between police and firefighter increases. One is about one's about 90,000. I forget what the numbers are, but the total comes to about 400,000. And so that, I mean, that's right there. The increase is 80% of that $500,000 is related to emergency services, which we are required obviously to provide, but also govern. I'm sorry, Dave.
No, that's fine. You can go to next.
And just to clarify, of the 5,255,528, 10.6% of that is fire and EMS, and 89.4% of that is police.
Yeah, very good.
You can go to the next.
This was the next. You can keep going.
Yeah, this one is just another cut of that one. So you can see 7% total in the current cut of the budget versus the projection. It'd be a little bit less versus prior budget. As Mike mentioned, that delta is really between budget to budget is nearly all in our public safety. From year to year, we're really looking at some offsetting increases, less charges in highway, more in sewer and stormwater. You'll see those borne out. I use when I build up our employees' costs, I'll project out assumed increases by person, then break out public works into usually what they've done prior work, look back and see what they did in, so look at year-to-date 23 and 22 and see what percentage of their time was spent on sewer, snow, parks, highways, all of those pieces, and then I'll generate a percentage, and then I'll apply that to the forthcoming budget. So even if you miss in one category, you'll see usually on the year-to-date reports, it's usually a flip in another category. So say we did a bunch of stormwater work, you would see highways probably down at that time and vice versa. Let's see, anything else I really want to call out?
Dave, let me comment also on that, on a couple of increases that did get my attention. They are under Public Works Sanitation. Specifically,
What page?
well, it says you're 7 of 1. 1 of 7 is what 7 is the
Seven?
page. That is on this breakout, the detail,
Oh, on the.
the detail, not the presentation. But if you look at that page 7 under Public Works Sanitation, the first line item, wages sewer, budget 2023 is 211. Budget 24 is 312, so that's $100,000 increase. And then if you look at stormwater materials and supplies, we're budget 23 at $100,000, and budget 24 is at 150. So those are that's $150,000 of increase in that budget category alone. And of course, we were just talking about stormwater. And I recognize it, but that's also a substantial increase. Obviously, if you add that 150 to the 400, over 550, but there are other compensating factors when you look at the reductions or decreases in some of the line items throughout the rest of the expenditure side of the budget. But that's also one, folks, you see that one?
Are you suggesting that it should be cut?
No, I'm just pointing out that in addition to emergency services, which are driving the budget increase, also stormwater expenses are also driving the increase in the budget for this coming year.
You're right, Mike. And part of that too is what we've seen this year with Ellis Lane and Baldwin Circle. I mean, we're seeing more and more of it. The more that we have the guys out there, things are happening, and there's our infrastructure that's needing constant repair, and we're actually getting to it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, a big portion is services, emergency service, and another portion is infrastructure. And so, but I just wanted to make sure you saw it, because that one jumped out at me as far as a substantial increase.
I'm gonna say that we need to get the Public Works guys desks, make them not get out there.
hey,
Stop finding these problems.
Dave, I want to
That's
ask
said
a
with
question.
appreciation.
yes, sir.
Page 2 of the original presentation, revenues, the last line, inter-fund operating transfers.
Yes.
Where is that $1,270,000 coming from?
That comes from the sewer fund and the refuse fund and the municipal authority.
Sewer? And
Refuse.
okay, and we're transferring that money into the general fund?
Yeah, we call those our quarterly recharges. So for all of the services provided, they take a piece of all of the administrative costs, all of our assets that go into it. And they're still expected to be a break-even operation. So that's looking at the refuse. I mean, I'm doing the next piece of the budget right now, and refuse still looks very strong. Sewer is the one that I'm more worried about, because obviously with the more work we're doing, we're saving money by having in-house public works do it. It's 30 to 35% of what we would have to charge a third-party vendor, or they would charge us. So when they go out and do that, they use our machines, they're using our labor. So we're charging the sewer operation account, but that's part of the projection, is to make sure that the rates are enough to bear those costs of fixing everything on a regular basis, which we're kind of doing in-house
Okay.
versus going out.
Same kind of question down below in total revenues. 21 actual, 22 actual, we had about $500,000 in interfund transfers, and now we're at a zero. What
Those-
happened there?
Those were surpluses at the time that we put into capital, into the infrastructure, into operating those different accounts.
Mhm.
So it went out of general fund, and now it goes into, say, extra money into capital, so that we know capital is sustainable.
It's part of the general fund balance, essentially.
Well,
Okay.
those, if it's transferred out, it's not part of the general fund balance.
It's out.
Well, this is expenses. Where does it go to?
The various funds.
It would go to the various funds that we transfer it to. That's usually around the end of the year. If we have a surplus. And I'll make a recommendation to say, we should leave X amount into the general fund. We should put X amount into a
Yeah.
sustainability fund.
But you're not projecting a surplus this year though, right?
For 23, I'm projecting $270,505.
Is that part of last year's surplus that we had left over?
No, this is just this year.
Okay,
So it would be the end of 23, we have $270,000. This is just what I'm projecting now. And I'd say, do you want to leave that in the general fund? Would you like to put it in operating? Would you like to put extra into capital? Further supplement the sustainable infrastructure fund?
okay.
Yeah, John, if you take a look, again, on the detail sheet, the last page, which is 12 of it under and this is now on the expense side of interfund transfers. It's important and kind of piggybacking on what Dave just said. If you look at that last page under interfund transfers as an expenditure, transferring to the capital reserve, transferring to the infrastructure sustainability fund, or transferring to the operating reserve, what do you see there for 2024? They're all zeros. There's no transfers indicated in that expense side, in that expense item. So comment on that, Dave. I mean, they're all zeros under transfers to our capital reserve, to our infrastructure sustainability fund, and also our operating reserve. Don't we have to sustain or
Yes,
fund those?
so those you'll find, we do regular transfers built into the lines. That section is really just for overages, surpluses.
Okay.
All of the other transfers would be, I'll get an example for you. Let's look under Public Works.
Let's see, capital purchases, heavy equipment. Highway
Yes,
Equipment, capital replacement, highway equipment.
Yes,
Okay.
anything that says capital replacement or capital purchase,
Those are actual transfers.
those are all the capital transfers that would go just into the capital fund. We
Okay.
break it out by administrative costs, so office equipment, software. And then Public Works usually has the highway equipment and trucks. Whether it's replacement, most of it's replacement purchases for new items.
Yeah.
Replacement is on our fixed asset and depreciation list, understanding what needs to get changed when. And we
And-
have that balance
All right.
continually. That's why we have $6 million.
It might be nice to just have an aggregate so we know what that number is, that we know what's going into the capital based on those individual line.
Sure,
items.
obviously I have that in my detail that I keep
Yeah.
below my whole presentation, and then I
Yeah.
share with you guys.
Now, that said, I don't think there's a single line in there under expenses for anything that's going to the infrastructure sustainability fund?
No.
Okay, so there's no funds going into there's no funding.
You're
for
getting to what I'm concerned about here. And you guys understand, I'm not a financial guy. I'm just a poor country lawyer.
Me too. Oh, I'm not a
And,
lawyer. I'm just poor
And
country.
last year, we went through this process. Dave presented the 10-year plan. And in that plan, I don't know if it was year 5 or year 6, we went below the line.
Yeah.
In other words, for people to understand, we got to a point where our expenses exceeded our revenues and we were in the red. So what the board did, and I'm not picking at a sword here or anything, but what the board did was to increase taxes with the idea, I thought, that in the future, we would be pushing that time out when we went upside down, and we would be putting money into some of the funds in the reserves. I don't see that here. What I see is that almost all of the tax increase is eaten up in this budget. Am I correct, or am I missing something?
Yes, so the long range plan that I just did this year, I had a 2023 projection of surplus of $322,000. That wasn't going, I didn't forecast putting any money into any of these other funds except for the capital fund, which is built into my line items.
Well,
So that's, so in
That's-
other words, that
that's
surplus
typical.
would be discretionary on the board to authorize.
Every year.
Okay,
Any surplus to
but
go
my
into other
point-
funds.
My point is, when we went upside down, and again, I think it was 26 or 27. I don't
27.
remember. Okay, when we went upside down, we would have withdrawn most of our reserves at that point, right?
No, at that point, we would still have, we would just start drawing on our reserves. We would have about $6.5 million. If we
Okay.
had these continual surpluses from 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Yeah,
Okay,
that tenure was focused on the general fund and the condition of it as a prime funder for some of these other funds like capital reserve. and
well,
the
yeah, I
infrastructure.
understand that, but
So-
at one point, we had $13 million in reserves. Last year, in fact, it was more than that, wasn't it?
Not in the, not specifically just in the general fund. That was about 6 in the general fund. Capital was.
Capital's around 6 as well.
Okay, so you had 12 there in the infrastructure sustainability, so you were up to 13 or 14. But the current 10-year projection with this recent property tax increase has given us an extended in the black, if you will, through 27, right?
Right.
Or
and
26, 27. It
Yeah,
starts to
correct.
thin right at that point. So.
Is that
you know,
really what we're seeing here, though? Or are we seeing a tax increase sooner?
Well, I can't say yes or no 100% because
Sure.
we haven't finished the
Yeah.
year and we don't know what's going to be in the final budget, but that's kind of the concern in the final slides that Derek, you want to jump to?
And while you're looking at that, John, you really hit on a question that I was gonna put to Dave, and that is if you can explain the relationship of the 2023 property tax increase, the added revenue, this 0.5 mil, the relationship to the 23 budget projection and to the 24 budget draft, as well as the 10-year projection. I mean, that's what John's getting at. What's the relationship of that property tax increase that was imposed starting this year? How is it impacting in a positive way, presumably, the projection for 23?
We would be negative this year.
Okay, and the 24 budget?
We would be negative.
We'd be negative. And the 10-year projection, we would be a lot
It would have
sooner. We
shifted
would-
that all the way to right now.
Right now.
And so we'd be leaking money,
All right,
starting small and getting big.
all right,
Don't
so,
forget
you-
the MMO too.
well, yeah,
That's.
yeah. But you heard what Dave said. If the property tax increase wasn't there, all 3 of those elements, the projection for this year-end projection at 23, the 24 budget is presently drafted, and the 10-year projection, we would right now be in a negative deficit
Yeah,
position.
that was about an $800,000
It was-
increase.
Yeah,
in
but
revenue.
we wouldn't have had that much of a, we wouldn't have that. If we had cut some of the things last year
We
that we
didn't
talked
cut
about,
anything
that was
last
the
year.
problem. Everybody got what they
We
wanted.
went through that. What did you want to cut? Do you want to cut?
It
Parks and
wasn't gonna
Recreation?
reach,
We
I
had a
didn't,
list.
I didn't think that we got to 800,000 that way.
No,
We
we
got
got,
to
we got
600,000.
close. We got pretty close and we could have taken 200,000
And-
from
and
reserves.
we had, after the tax increase, we had a surplus of almost $500,000.
Yes.
So,
John, I just want to say something real quick, if you don't mind. The cuts that are being mentioned that, everyone got what they want. Last year, there's no way we would have gotten close to 800. And there was no real, you could cut 2,000 here, cut 3,000 there, but there's no way you're gonna get to 800 unless you were to cut, fire, EMS or police, so.
But last year I went through things and I found a way to do $600,000 in cuts to be able to balance things using $200 from reserves. 200,000 is not a terrible amount to use from reserves to make things copacetic for 1
Well, I
year.
think we also assumed at that time, Michelle, that the grants that WeGo was getting would have offset something in the budget, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
And looking at this budget,
That's true.
I do not see that either.
And you're right, absolutely.
And again, and then picking up on this current budget, it was said earlier, but some very large asks by police, WeGo, are
Um,
not even in the budget.
That's a very good point. And,
We can say what the
I-
large asks are,
What-
we can let the
no.
public know if you want. I mean,
I have it on this slide, just in total, what the request was and what is in this cut.
really, that,
Oh, so you have a number for what that ask translates to, were we to put it in the budget? Then we would be into a deficit situation for next year.
Yes.
well, I wonder, we, including me, are going at this kind of haphazardly. Perhaps Derek and Dave, we should do it more, in a more organized manner. Maybe we should take department budget by department budget or something like that, rather than focusing back and forth on one or another.
Oh, I thought we could do that. I mean, I figured we would have this general conversation, start to get it out there. But we can start to go really line by line item when you're ready to do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Unless you want to wait
that's-
another month, so you have more actual.
Well, I mean, that would help, but I mean, you have the detail here to give feedback on, which is I mean, that's got all the departments, all the different.
Yeah, this is the one this is the one I focused on. I didn't really even look at the presentation.
Well, we could put that. I mean,
That's the detail, John, of every line item.
Yeah, you can
within
put
each
that up and
department.
show John, just so he
Yeah.
sees what it looks
So I
like.
have the paper,
Go ahead, Cody.
Cody,
Thanks, just a quick question, Dave. So it looks like in this fund request, I know we could do line by department, but it looks like everything's really sucked up into, EMS, police, all that. This
And
doesn't, so
stormwater.
that's, and stormwater, yeah. My question for you is this Goshen Fire contribution looks like it's 3%. I think that their increase that they want is what, 28 or 29%? Is Grant in the room to help explain that? Because, that 3% is reflected here, so, but if the 28% was considered, plus all the other
You're in
stuff, that's a
the
much larger number.
3%, Cody, is related to the 23 projection, year-end projection. Is that what he's referring to? Or was that
It's-
budget to budget?
Budget to budget.
Oh, it was budget to budget, okay.
Grant had a
I did not have.
bigger ask.
I did
Cody,
not
and
have
he's here.
his, yeah, I didn't have Grant's request at the time that I did this, and so now we have their final, and Grant can speak to
Well-
it if he'd like.
Grant, it's a perfect segue.
And while he's on his way up, I'm just gonna make a comment that the WEGO budget hasn't been finalized. And the finance committee has to meet they have to meet, and then once that's done, we can start talking
Who's
about
the
details
finance
there.
committee for police?
Cody,
Cody?
and Dick Pomerantz.
Ah,
But John, one thing too, though, is that 9% that is increased, I think it was a 9% or 7% over year. I mean, the requests that we can control are very minimal. It's like the digital signs, the bikes. I think at the CBA, raise of 5.75 is what really eats up that we're mandatory to pay. So mandated.
We can also take a look at some of the expenses that they're currently, they currently have, and look for cuts there. I have suggestions, and I talked to Dave about that today.
Okay, well, Cody, when are you coming back?
Monday the 18th, and Michelle, if you could send me those too, so I'm prepared for the meeting, that'd be helpful.
Okay, well, that's in the right time zone.
So you're right, Michelle, the finance committee for WEGO will have some recommendations, I would expect, for the two boards
Right.
to consider down probably another month or so anyway.
After the September 27th commission meeting, then it will be officially in the hands of the
Finance.
Okay,
townships.
Oh, okay.
well, we have Grant up now. Sorry to keep you waiting, Grant.
Hi, how are you? As Dave said, we submitted a very preliminary budget to him several weeks ago. It does reflect a year-over-year increase. Find it here, sorry. For East Goshen,
I think the most recent one you sent was about 125,000.
124,490, which represents a 29% increase from our 2022.
Break it out for us, Grant. How's that?
So what's included in that? And so just so you know, we just wrapped up our 8+4 forecast. We're still working on that. Did see a little bit of positivity in that, where in our final request, we may see some reductions in the size of the request. We're continuing to drive as much cost out of that as we can. The big pieces of the increase in the document that Dave has, obviously the biggest one is wage increases. Our contract wage increase for this year will be 3.25%. So it is somewhat less than the police, but it is still a significant cost to us.
And what dollar amount does that equal?
So we're showing a $98,000 increase in wages, healthcare, and workers' comp, and we don't have the numbers from Dave yet for healthcare.
Do healthcare or workers.
Well,
Okay, so that's wages, healthcare,
And
and workers' comp.
in the insurance costs, we're just basing that on trends from the last couple of years. So we don't have hard numbers yet.
And so folks know, Goshen Fire Company, we now have 12 career firefighters.
Yeah, 12
So
full-time.
that's the nature of wages. It's not a volunteer fire company per se any longer, and transition has been underway for the last 8 years.
We've had career staff since the mid-80s.
Oh, has it been that career step, but only a couple at that? point?
Yeah, we started with one, and so we're at 12. We're about 15 or 16 full-time equivalents right now with part-timers and full-timers.
So that's 12 full-time firefighters, and how many full-time EMS?
No full-time EMS.
They're all part-time.
Yes,
How many?
30 some per diem. But as I said, filling the schedule, they're about
Great.
16 full-time
Yes,
equivalents.
a question, so this year, you're looking at a substantial percentage increase, but a lot of that is almost $100,000, including the ancillary of healthcare and workers' comp.
Yeah.
And that wage increase, but last year we didn't see that kind of an increase. Or did we?
There was a very generous increase last year.
It's
from
about
the prior
20%.
year.
Okay, and I'm not sure that I had picked up last year that it was all based on salary and wages. But clearly this is going to be an annual kind of increase. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, if it's 100,000 this year, it's got to be 100,000 next year more.
That's not sustainable.
The disturbing part is that it's looking back to say 2020, we're basically double what that was.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Well,
In total.
Pennsylvania and its municipalities have known for some years now with the changing dynamics of volunteer firefighting that that's not sustainable anymore. So the sustainability is going to come from municipalities directly and the taxpayers, because Ben Franklin and company are no longer in business, it seems. So I don't know what you do with that, Michelle, going
Well-
forward, except you got to recognize it somehow in the budget.
I think that East Goshen Township needs to start looking at regionalization of services. They need to be more efficient. They need to be providing the highest level of service to our consumers who need the services, but for the best cost that they can come up with. The regionalization is what we're gonna have to start looking at. And I'm concerned that we're baking in, I'm concerned that there could be a baking in of an ALS program for 2025. And I'm really, really concerned about that, because I'm hearing rumors that Goshen Fire Department is looking to start an ALS department. You came to us not too long ago asking for funding for that. And we said, no, not at this time. So I don't know if this is a way for you to figure the cost, passing the cost along in another direction, so that you can start an ALS service. ALS service is not it's a loss leader. It's not going to make any money for our department. And there just are not that many calls for ALS that can't be covered by good fellowship. I don't understand. I'm also hearing, I'm hearing that Goshen Fire Department staff or EMS staff are talking about it with other people and just letting them know that their days are numbered because ALS is coming to Goshen Fire Department.
So can I do a little rumor control?
Sure,
So there is no ALS cost baked into this budget.
okay.
We did have conversations with Derek and Dave
Mhm.
on a couple of occasions this year.
Right.
In our last meeting, Derek indicated that it wasn't time to bring this up with East Goshen Township. And we pulled all of those costs out of it. So that is not in here.
Okay,
That what you mentioned about us talking to, that is something that probably came back from Good Fellowship Ambulance. We heard that from Chaz Brogan, he said that exact same thing.
okay,
And we assured him that we weren't designing an ALS program that was going to poach his employees or drive them out of business or anything like that. We seriously considered ALS because it could be a more efficient model if it's cost effective. We're not in a position this year or next year to produce a cost effective ALS program.
okay.
But there is,
It's a loss leader. I don't want to see us.
there is no
down that
ALS
road.
money baked into this
Okay.
budget. The other big chunk of this is capital costs. We have got to keep funding our capital reserves so that we can buy fire trucks and so that we can replace our building that is aging at a pretty rapid pace right now.
So how much of that is going to be the capital cost? How much is that for the trucks and
We've got
building?
54,000 in there right now for that.
Grant, one of my concerns is, at one point you told us that you hadn't applied for grants. From the state or county. Is that still the case or?
We apply for grants all the time.
445.
Oh, yeah,
And are you
absolutely.
getting them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most
You can see it.
Most of the grants we get though are for the purchase of equipment. So it's money in, money out. We have gotten some for revenue replacement, but since COVID, that's kind of slowed down. But I apply for 4 or 5 grants a year
Okay.
and we've had
okay.
pretty good success with
That
them.
makes me feel a lot better. Thank you.
So, and I appreciate your feedback, appreciate your input. This is a work in progress. We hope to come back with a slimmer version of this.
Grant, what happens if the township doesn't approve the full request that you put in? And for instance, in the budget right now, we have 445 in the budget, the request is 556. So there's $111,000 delta there. What happens if the township stays with that 445 and the budget request of 556 is not authorized? Where's that $111,000 come from internally from Goshen Fire Company?
So there's a 2-part answer. There would be a bit of a domino effect. If East Goshen, if we look at this in terms of number of calls, assessed valuation, all the sorts of things you do to apply an equitable cost distribution across the 4 townships. If East Goshen only pays this much, then we can't go to West Goshen and say you need to pay more. So their portion will tend to
Go
down.
So your delta the overall delta will increase
Yes.
even further.
So
Let's call it deficit.
that's one of the impacts of it. We try to be equitable across the 4 townships. What we have been doing is it's been pulled from our general reserve fund. Which we talk about, that's not sustainable, will be upside down.
We certainly talk about it here.
That's the same position we will be in a few years. The only remedy is to change service levels. Which is something we don't want to do.
Of course.
Hey, Grant, some of the supervisors had one-on-one conversations with me and kind of wanted to see what the breakout would be between cost of fire calls versus BLS.
Mhm.
If you could, in the next coming time, kind of crunch those up for us.
So West Goshen has asked for that specifically. I have that.
Oh, great.
I broke it out for them. I can just add you to the,
Okay.
add a
And
column for
when
you.
you do apparatuses, do you guys put those out to bid like we do at the township?
EMS, like ambulances, we do Generally, we have traditionally stuck with one manufacturer for fire apparatus. Because in terms of quality and service, we have a really, really good vendor. But I think given now with the long lead times for equipment, it's really turning into who can get you the equipment the fastest.
Yeah, we saw that
so-
too.
Let me hold you up. Cody, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Grant. How are you?
Good, Cody, how are you?
Good, thanks. Got a couple questions for you. The first question is back to the grants question is, what did we receive in grants in 21 and 22? And then this year as well?
I don't have that in front of me. I can. get
Okay,
that
no
to
worries.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
My next, go ahead.
20 and 21 were pretty strong in grants because of the PPP loans
Sure.
that we received. So it really spiked.
Okay. Maybe even just, we could go before that. We can do pre-COVID then too. Maybe the last, 5 to 10 years of grants would be helpful.
Sure.
My next question for you is, you said you have 54,000 capital replacement for trucks. I'm assuming that's a different fund than your building or your normal reserve. What's your current reserve balance?
Okay, so we have 3 reserve funds. We have our general reserve, which is about $800,000. Might be a little higher than that because the stock market's been friendly.
Yeah.
The apparatus reserve is a little bit north of 3 million. And the building reserve, I didn't look at the numbers, 2,500, but I can send Dave this month's levels of each one of those reserves.
And then
Appreciate
the request that you have, the reserves, the only reserve fund that you're asking for us to help supplement would be the ones for your trucks and stuff, right?
The apparatus in the building. We put,
Got it.
we're targeting $240,000 a year into the apparatus fund, and 120 a year into the building fund. So it's
Got it, okay.
360
What's the
combined.
I
next
have one more.
big piece of, oh, I'm sorry, Cody. I'm
But just
sorry,
have one
go
more
ahead.
question, Mike, sorry. What does your current budget look like this year in regards to, surplus deficit? And what does that look like for this year?
So we just reforecasted our deficit for this year. We were in the 300s. I think when we completed our 8+4, we're I think in the 130 to 140,000 range. That came down substantially in the last 2 months.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Grant, what's the next big piece of equipment that Goshen Fire Company is looking to replace?
So we have 2 pieces of apparatus that actually were supposed to be replaced this year, and we've just kind of pushed it out a little bit. One was a pumper and one was our heavy rescue. We made a decision last year that we were going to retire the rescue and purchase a rescue pumper, sort of a multi-use vehicle. And it takes one piece of capital equipment out of our replacement program.
And a combined unit like that, current market,
$1 million.
1.2,
Yeah,
about 1.2.
yeah.
Okay.
Once it's equipped, yeah.
Now,
Can I ask if you could possibly break out, I want to see the breakout of your capital costs for the truck and the building breakdown.
Mhm.
And so if you're breaking out the fire and BLS for us, if you can break down the what you're looking for in the wage increases, the capital cost, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, the wage increases are 3.25.
Cody, were you finished?
All good. Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, Cody.
Grant, thank you.
Grant, just one final thing. Have you looked at, I know smoothing out some of the ups and downs with the supply demand chain and rates going up and down. Have you looked at, since the laws changed and it's no longer just volunteer fire organizations, it could get a loan for 2%? Can't you guys do that?
So we're about to retire 2 loans. I
Okay,
think we're allowed to have 2 at a time.
I think 3 in the new one.
Okay, so we have 2 that we're just about to retire, and we would seek the 2% money for our next purchase.
Okay, I think that kind of a partnership with East Goshen would be beneficial, kind of tailoring into our long range plans to understand what your obligations are, and if we were able to buy into something like that, I don't know.
And we are looking at an LSA grant I think it's LSA,
Yeah,
but we need a municipal sponsor in order to,
local share.
Local
Yeah.
share.
so as a nonprofit, we are permitted to apply, but we have to have a municipal sponsor in order to do that.
That's the one that we got 176,000 for Bow Tree. And they're doing another one, which the due date is November 30th. I talked to the MA about possibly going out, so I don't know if the MA could do it separately. We could do one and whether they could do one as well. I mean, it's statewide, so.
Grant, one final one, if you will comment on fire relief fund, the allocation we get and the other municipalities get each year and the percentage that you get. How is that serving Goshen Fire Company at this point? I don't mean the specifics,
It's,
but
it's
a-
tremendous for us, there's others, fire companies that maybe use it for other things, but we use every penny of it. We buy insurance, we buy protective equipment. Every fire truck we buy, 25% of the cost is covered by our relief association. So the relief our relief association does not have a huge reserve because they are actively spending money to support the safety of the members, to purchase apparatus, all of that
I
stuff.
think there's certain requirements, aren't there, for what those funds can be spent for?
Yeah, in fact, we just got audited. The Auditor General comes out every couple of years and
Yep.
really
Yeah.
goes through us.
Yeah.
But some fire companies invest that money in certain ways and things like the borough.
A lot of-
in mortgages.
In
and stuff.
mortgages, there you go. It's
Um,
they have the largest fire relief fund reserve in the state, I
Yes,
believe.
yes, they
or At
do.
least one of them.
So it's a very active fund for us and we use it.
Yeah.
Extensively.
And I think the fire relief funds now are able to be used for actual, not apparatus, but fleet. So it could, it's a smaller number when you're talking about $1.2 million of what comes in each year.
But our plan
But
would
it
be,
can be used for that, not just breathing apparatus
Yes.
and
yeah,
insurance.
like I said, our relief association pays 25% of the cost of every fire truck we buy.
For those who are not familiar, fire relief funds are allocated to each municipality annually by the Commonwealth from funds accumulated from outside insurance companies.
Mhm.
And there's a premium that they pay into this fund, and then it's allocated to each municipality. And then the municipality has full discretion on how and what percentage it can distribute it to its emergency service providers, including, Good Fellowship Ambulance qualifies under fire relief funds as well. So it's another form of funding that's regular, but it's typically not been keeping up with inflation per se, because it's a
Yeah.
different vehicle for accumulating funds and distribution. So I
It's
just thought
very,
I'd share
you're
that.
very restricted in how you can spend that money.
Okay,
We appreciate it.
everybody good? Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Grant, thanks. for having-
Appreciate it.
One thing I would say though, is what we were just sharing and Grant was sharing with us from the standpoint of Goshen Fire Company as our fire and EMS. It's the same kind of conversation we'll be having with WeGo and our police, because right now they've got an ask that there's a gap right now of about $265,000 of what's in this current budget and what is not being funded. So while Goshen has $100,000 or $111,000, it's not currently in this budget of what we've just gone through. WeGo has their request in, and of the requests that they put in, right now there's a gap of $265,000. So you can see how emergency services are a real driver for municipal expenses and budgets and financing and taxpayer costs these years.
Right.
Yeah, and EMS taxes are a big topic of conversation around the financial directors in the county.
Right.
Thank you, John.
Does anyone in the room have a comment or a question? You want to
Come on
open it
up if you do.
Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Somebody still has his hand up, but maybe that was just from before.
Cody, you still with us?
Yeah,
I'm still good, no questions.
okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Cody. Derek, you have a suggestion or two?
Well, I just wanted to talk about the path forward for the next couple meetings.
Yeah,
on the
good.
budget. So
Good.
next week, we have a similar presentation just on other funds and capital projects, just to kind of hash those out for the upcoming year and even beyond a little bit. But the main homework for this one, what I want to assign to the board is looking at the detailed sheet here. And I guess we can get that up on the website, right, Dave? And we can.
Yeah, the preliminary, sure.
Yeah, preliminary. And then, so what I would like to do is after next week at one of the meetings in October, from now until that meeting, have the board sort of go over the details of the Excel sheet, and we can put it out for the public. And then what sort of, John was getting at earlier, that's when the October meeting is when we can kind of go through the departments and suggestions from the board, from the public, and then we can fine tune the general fund in that way a little
All
bit.
right,
That
That's
works.
good. And if the board, I didn't see comments from other board members, but if you didn't read the comments that I sent through to Dave and Derek and copied everyone on both the revenue and the expense side, that's where I pulled those questions from. So if nothing else, you can use those as a punch point to start to dig into that detailed sheet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I think we all need to go take a look at the numbers, so let's proceed with the regular agenda. I think we're up to standing issues and projects. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna cover that tonight. I thought this.
Yeah, I thought that was just the budget tonight. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I
Well,
thought
it
we
was
did.
on here, so you know me, just went like a robot.
So we did approve the Milltown Dam project at the last meeting.
Yep.
And I just went over the contract today with Eric Neist from Gannett Fleming. So I have to sign that actually tomorrow with Flyway Excavation.
Good, good.
And then we do have to, I'll probably be before the board, we do have to tweak our contract with Gannett somewhat due to the new scope.
Is
Reduced, but then we're talking right now amongst ourselves about language of how we sort of keep them in the peripheral for phasing of possible enhancements down the road. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to think through that a
Oh,
little bit.
sure.
So it might just be on a time and materials basis.
They
when-
found out
when-
there's money there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But we are gonna need an engineer even if we use, Public Works for the actual work. So that'll be at the board's, sometime in October.
That'll be
Probably.
good. How about the Millertown Pocket Park? Oh, I
Milltown
thought it
Pocket
was
Park.
Millertown.
Milltown Pocket Park. I actually have to get with Mark and Jason. It's, we're doing it in the fall. So before winter, but we just have to, again, kind of what I reiterated already, work with the manufacturer and Mark, so the schedules can align with the manufacturer and Public Works, because it's gonna need to happen like bang, bang. We need to get the land sort of ready,
Yep,
and then, they'll be able to put the equipment in, but
the equipment's ready, right? They said they had it.
oh, they have, yeah, we
Good
have that.
value
Yeah, we have that.
because
It's just
they had it.
a matter of, the delivery, so.
How's your schedule, Mark, on that tuning up that parcel? I don't know how the paving, I guess the paving is about 90% done. You're done for the year?
Good. He's doing your job.
Okay, so
Good.
next 30 days or
Yeah,
so.
it's gonna be done in October.
Okay.
That's great.
And the last one, Mark just mentioned it, standing issues, Bow Tree Pond, we're looking to start in October.
All right, thank you. Any other matter from the board? Any other public comment? Cody, do you have a hand up or no?
Nope,
What time is it there, Cody?
2:30
AM.
Ciao, Bella.
AM.
Some Chianti to go to sleep?
Yeah.
It's time.
Well, enjoy
God-
yourself. Stay safe over
God
there.
bless you.
All right, Cody.
And no graffiti on the Coliseum, please.
I can afford that.
I'm gonna make a motion. If Cody won't do it, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. Oh,
All in favor, aye?
aye.
Aye, aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Ciao.
You all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cody. Be
Good
good.
meeting.
Thanks, Derek.